Ever gone down a Google rabbit hole looking for some weird fact and come out completely empty? That's because the really good stuff doesn't show up on page 1, or anywhere you'd think to look. Lucky for you, I did the digging, and what I found is wild. I'm Mike with List 25, and these are 25 facts you won't find in a quick Google search. 25. The Stasi. Most secret police forces kick down your door and drag you away. East Germany Stasi? They played the long game. Their method was called Zersetzung, German for biodegradation. The goal was to slowly decompose your entire life until you had nothing left. Here's how it worked. Instead of arresting you and turning you into some political martyr, they'd quietly destroy everything you cared about. Your boss would suddenly get anonymous complaints. Your friends would hear rumors you never said. Your mail would disappear. Your belongings would get moved around enough to make you think you were going insane. Relationships would implode out of nowhere. The goal was to break you down mentally, isolate you, and make you so paranoid that you'd give up and stop being a problem. Victims described it like their lives were slowly eroding away with no evidence, no explanation, and no way to fight back. Chilling stuff. 24. The Lover in the Attic. In the early 1900s, a woman named Walburga Dolly Osterreich was married to a wealthy apron factory owner, living the good life. Except Dolly had a side piece, a 17-year-old sewing machine repairman named Otto. And instead of sneaking around like a normal person, Dolly decided to stash Otto in her attic, full-time, for years. Otto had a cot, food, and writing materials, and apparently the patience of a saint because he lived up there while Dolly went about her day downstairs. Everything was fine until 1922, when Dolly and her husband Fred got into a nasty fight. Otto came downstairs, shot Fred, and they staged the whole thing to look like a burglary gone wrong. She inherited everything. 7 years later, however, Dolly's lawyer ratted her out. Otto got convicted of manslaughter, but the statute of limitations had expired, so he walked. Dolly got tried for conspiracy, but the jury couldn't decide, and charges were dropped. She remarried after that, lived until 1961, and left behind one wild legacy. 23. Pet food tasters. There are actual human beings out there getting paid to taste dog food. And not a little money, mind you. Serious money. Pet food companies hire humans to taste test kibble, wet food, and treats. Their job is to check quality, flavor, and texture to make sure every batch tastes the way it's supposed to. These aren't random people off the street eating Purina for kicks. These tasters have refined palates and can detect tiny differences in ingredients that most of us would never notice. It's a real career that requires real skill. The paycheck? Experienced tasters can pull in up to $120,000 a year. So while most of us are grinding away at regular jobs, someone's making six figures eating kibble, living their best life. No judgment. You can get that bag. 22. Reindeer and lightning in Norway. A single lightning strike in Norway once took out a herd of 323 reindeer in one shot. One bolt, 323 reindeer, gone. The year was 2016, and the storm that day was relentless. The reindeer were huddled together in a tight herd when lightning struck nearby. The electrical current didn't hit one unlucky animal and call it a day. It traveled through the ground and entered their bodies through their legs. This phenomenon, called ground current or step voltage, spread through the entire herd because they were standing so close together. It's a brutal reminder of how dangerous lightning actually is and how herd behavior can turn a bad situation into a catastrophe. Those reindeer were trying to ride out a storm together, but nature had other plans, which is both tragic and terrifying. 21. Why don't killer whales attack humans? A lightning bolt can wipe out 223 reindeer in a single strike. But get this, orcas have never taken a human life in the wild. Ever. These are apex predators. They hunt seals, sharks, and whales way bigger than us. They're smart and powerful and could absolutely destroy a person if they wanted to. But they don't. All the orca incidents that have happened, those were in captivity, where stress, confinement, and unnatural living conditions pushed them to the edge. Out in the wild, orcas seem to see humans as non-prey. They're curious about us, sure, but they don't view us as food. It's a fascinating example of how intelligent and selective these animals are when it comes to hunting. You can swim with wild orcas and statistically be perfectly fine. It's the ones stuck in tanks performing tricks who have had enough. Can't say I blame them. 20. The Man Who Rode the Thunder. In 1959, Colonel William Rankin was flying over Montana when his plane malfunctioned, forcing him to eject. That's bad enough on its own, but Rankin was ejected directly into a massive cumulonimbus thunderstorm cloud, and things got worse from there. He spent 40 minutes falling through that storm. 40 minutes. He got tossed around by violent winds, pelted with hail, struck by lightning, and experienced rapid pressure changes that left him with frostbite, welts, bruises, and decompression injuries. Most people wouldn't have made it. Rankin somehow did. To this day, he's the only known person to survive a fall through a thunderstorm cloud like that. The story sounds like fiction, but is backed up by documentation and his own first-hand account. A nightmare scenario and a testament to human resilience all rolled into one. 19. The Sunken Treasures of the Arabia. You'd think shipwrecks belong at the bottom of the ocean, right? Well, there are massive shipwrecks buried under cornfields in Kansas. Yes, landlocked Kansas. Back in the 19th and early 20th centuries, the Missouri River and its tributaries used to be major shipping routes, but they flooded constantly and changed course all the time. Because of that, ships would sink or get abandoned in shallow, marshy areas. And over time, sediment, urban development, and farming buried them. These vessels ended up underground, preserved under dirt and crops like some kind of agricultural time capsule. The most famous one is the steamboat Arabia, which sank in 1856 and was excavated in the 80s. They found it under a Kansas cornfield, perfectly preserved, filled with cargo like whiskey, pickles, and fancy French perfume. A reminder that rivers don't stay put, and neither do the things that sink in them. 18. Pepsi's original name. Pepsi, one of the biggest soft drink brands on the planet, was originally called Brad's Drink. Yep, Brad's Drink. Can you imagine walking into a store and asking for an ice-cold Brad's Drink? Absolutely not. The soda was invented in 1893 by a pharmacist named Caleb Bradham in New Bern, North Carolina. He created it as a carbonated beverage meant to help with digestion and give people an energy boost. For 5 years, it was named Brad's Drink after him. Then in 1898, Bradham got smart and renamed it Pepsi Cola. The name was inspired by pepsin, a digestive enzyme, and cola for the flavoring. The rebrand clearly worked as Pepsi became a global powerhouse. But in an alternate universe, people are cracking open an ice-cold Brad's Drink at barbecues. That timeline sounds hilarious. 17. The Talmud is a bestseller in South Korea. The Talmud, a massive collection of Jewish legal discussions, ethics, philosophy, and folklore, is a bestseller in South Korea. Not for religious reasons, though. South Koreans are reading it for critical thinking and problem-solving skills. Publishers and educators there have pushed the Talmud as a guide for cultivating intelligence, logic, and ethical reasoning, especially for kids and students. It's marketed as a tool for academic success and intellectual development, and parents are all in. Bookstores stock it right alongside textbooks and self-help guides, and it's become part of the country's obsession with education and self-improvement. One of the central texts of Rabbinic Judaism is flying off the shelves in Seoul, not because people are converting, but because they want their kids to think smarter. 16. The Medieval Knight with Liquid Blood. In 1981, archaeologists in St. Bees, England, dug up the remains of a medieval knight. While medieval bodies turn up frequently, this one was unique because it still contained liquid blood, intact organs, and visible irises, remaining perfectly preserved even after 6 centuries underground. Archaeologists opened up that grave expecting bones and maybe some scraps of cloth. Instead, they got what looked like a very, very old sleeping person. Scientists think the grave had a perfect storm of soil composition, moisture, and temperature that basically put decomposition on pause. It also gave researchers an incredible opportunity to study biology and burial practices from that era, which is also genuinely unsettling. 15. Compersion. There's this wholesome emotion you've probably felt a bunch of times, but never knew there was an actual word for. It's called compersion, and it's basically the opposite of jealousy. Compersion is that rush of happiness you get when someone else wins. Not fake happiness, not polite congratulations, genuine joy. The term gets used a lot in polyamorous relationships, where people have multiple romantic partners at once and talk about feeling compassion when their partner is happy with someone else. But it applies to anything. Your coworker gets promoted? Compersion. Your best friend falls in love? Compersion. Proof that humans aren't always selfish. 14. Why do we show the whites of our eyes? Ever wonder why human eyes look so different from most animals? It's because we've got these big, visible white parts called the sclera, and they're basically built-in communication tools. I laugh because I can't open my eyes wide. So, here, hold on. There we go. Most animals have dark scleras that blend in with their irises, making it hard to tell where they're looking. Humans? Our eyes are designed to broadcast exactly where our attention is at all times. Scientists think we evolved this way to help with social cooperation and nonverbal communication. Being able to see where someone's looking helped our ancestors coordinate during hunts, share information silently, and work together without saying a word. We're walking around with eyeballs that are constantly snitching on us, telling everyone exactly what we're paying attention to. Privacy? Never heard of her. I guess you can see mine if I look this way. I still can't open my eyes wide. 13. The tree that owns itself. There's a tree in Athens, Georgia that legally owns itself and the land around it. Yes, a tree with property rights. According to local legend, a guy named William H. Jackson loved this white oak tree so much that in the early 19th century, he deeded ownership of the tree and the 8 feet of land surrounding it to the tree itself. Straight up gave a tree its own property. The tree became a beloved symbol of the city, and everyone went along with this completely bonkers legal agreement. The original tree fell in 1942, but the city wasn't about to let that legacy end, so they grew a new tree from one of its acorns and planted it in the same spot. Now, the offspring stands there, continuing the tradition of being a tree that owns itself. It's actually kind of charming. I mean, the tree earned it. And I just can't help think but the Deku tree and the Deku shrub. 12. Funnel web spider. The Australian funnel web spider has venom that's ridiculously lethal to primates, humans included, but bizarrely harmless to most other animals. It's like this spider evolved specifically to ruin our day. The venom has a compound called delta atracotoxin that goes straight for the primate nervous system. It floods your body with neurotransmitters, which sounds scientific until you realize that means muscle spasms, can't breathe, and the heart stops. Without antivenom, a bite from one of these things can be fatal. But a bird, a lizard, most other mammals, they get bitten and they're fine. The venom doesn't faze them. Scientists think the venom evolved for hunting or defense in Australia's ecosystem, not to specifically target humans. We just drew the short straw by being primates. Thankfully, antivenom exists and works really well. 11. The bear siege in Russia. In 2008, a group of up to 30 bears laid siege to a remote platinum mine in Russia. Yeah, you heard me right. 30 bears. These animals surrounded the facility, took out 2 security guards, and trapped around 400 workers inside. Nobody could leave. It was a full-on bear blockade. A barricade, if you will. The mine was in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by massive wildlife populations, and the bears apparently woke up one day and chose chaos. Workers were trapped inside while authorities tried to figure out how exactly you're supposed to deal with 30 furious bears blocking the exits. Eventually, they had to call in special teams to get everyone out alive. Mining in bear country is already risky, but a coordinated action by 30 bears? That's a whole different level. 10. Letters of last resort. The UK has 4 nuclear-armed submarines patrolling the ocean right now, and each one carries a safe with handwritten letters from the Prime Minister inside. They're called the Letters of Last Resort, and they're only open if the UK gets obliterated in a nuclear event and the entire government is gone. Only the Prime Minister knows what's inside. Retaliation orders? A plea for peace? Find new allies? Well, that's between them and the paper. Parliament never sees them. Nor does the military get a preview. Submarine commanders will only break the seal if Britain has already been wiped off the map, and there's no government left to give orders. When a new PM takes office, they write fresh letters, and the old ones get destroyed without ever being opened. Whatever the previous leader decided stays buried forever. 9. Canada's Maple Syrup Reserve. After nuclear apocalypse letters, let's lighten things up a bit. Canada has a strategic maple syrup reserve. Not oil, not grain, syrup, because of course they do. The Federation of Quebec Maple Syrup Producers manages this thing, and they've got millions of pounds of syrup stored in secure warehouses. Quebec makes most of the world's maple syrup, so this stockpile exists to protect against bad harvests, natural disasters, or anything else that can mess with the global supply. It keeps producers' income stable, aside from making sure the rest of us never face a pancake crisis. And yes, this reserve is such a big deal that in 2012, thieves pulled off an $18 million maple syrup heist. The whole thing was so ridiculous, it became a Netflix series. Only Canada could have a strategic food reserve dedicated entirely to breakfast syrup. 8. The single leading cause of disability worldwide. Back pain is the #1 cause of disability across the entire planet. Not heart disease, not diabetes, back pain. And in the US alone, it costs over $50 billion every year in missed workdays and lost productivity. The causes range from muscle strain and terrible posture to degenerative spinal conditions that get worse over time. Millions of people deal with chronic back pain that limits their ability to work, exercise, or live their lives normally. It's something people don't take seriously until it happens to them, and then suddenly they're realizing how much your back controls everything you do. The scary part? A lot of back pain is preventable with proper ergonomics, regular movement, and not sitting hunched over a desk for 12 hours a day. But we keep doing it anyway. Fun times. 7. That time Bender from Futurama got elected. In 2010, hackers broke into Washington, D.C.'s school board electronic voting system and rigged it so Bender, the chain-smoking, beer-guzzling robot from Futurama, won a seat on the board. A cartoon character who routinely tells people to bite his shiny metal ass got elected to an actual government position. The school board was testing its shiny, new e-voting system and apparently forgot to lock the doors. This gave hackers the opportunity to waltz right in, exploit every vulnerability they could find, and decide the best use of their skills was electing a fictional robot with a criminal record and a drinking problem. Democracy in action, folks. The whole debacle exposed catastrophic flaws in digital voting security and became Exhibit A in every argument about why election systems need bulletproof protection. Bender's political career ended before it really began, but he probably would have done a better job than some real politicians. 6. Laws to prevent Castro's personality cult. Cuba passed a law specifically designed to prevent a personality cult from forming around Fidel Castro after his passing, reportedly based on Castro's own wishes. The law bans using his name for institutions, streets, parks, public places, honorary titles, or medals. The goal is to acknowledge his historical role without turning him into some untouchable godlike figure whose image gets plastered everywhere. It's a pretty unusual move for a country where Castro was the face of the revolution for decades. Most leaders would love to have their names immortalized on every street corner and statue in their country. Castro apparently wanted the opposite. Whether that's genuine humility or strategic legacy management is up for debate, but either way, Cuba took him seriously. No Castro Elementary School, no Castro Boulevard. 5. Goats help clear acres of dry brush. In San Rafael, California, they've been using hundreds of goats to clear dry brush and prevent wildfires. Not machinery, not chemicals, goats doing what goats do best: eating everything in sight. Goats are insanely effective at consuming thick vegetation, invasive plants, and dry grasses that fuel wildfires. They'll chow down on stuff that's way too dense for lawnmowers and way too widespread to clear by hand. This method, called targeted grazing, is environmentally friendly, avoids heavy machinery tearing up the land, and gives goats a job they genuinely enjoy. Win-win. Plus, watching a herd of goats devour acres of brush is oddly satisfying. They're out there doing their part to protect communities from fire danger while also being ridiculously cute. You know what? More cities should be hiring goat armies. Maybe not the fainting ones, though. Might not be as effective. 4. Humans are not the only primates that curse. Chimpanzees swear. Like actual cussing. And we know this because researchers taught them sign language and then watched them flip people off in ASL when they got mad. Project Washoe happened back in the 60s and 70s, and researchers were teaching chimps how to use sign language. The chimps learned hundreds of signs and got surprisingly good at communicating. But then, something hilarious started happening. Whenever the chimps got annoyed or angry, they'd start signing insults at people. Not random hand movements, actual deliberate swear words directed right at whoever ticked them off. Swearing isn't some crude human habit we need to outgrow. It's primal. Chimps do it. We do it. It's apparently hardwired into primate DNA as a way to relieve stress and tell someone exactly how you feel. So, the next time someone lectures you about your language, tell them you're expressing yourself like your evolutionary cousins. Science backs you up. 3. Groundhogs are edible. Fully edible. And according to people who've actually cooked them, they taste pretty decent if you know what you're doing. The meat is similar to rabbit or dark chicken with a slightly sweet flavor that's not half bad. The trick is cooking it right because groundhog meat can get tough and gamey fast if you mess up. People usually slow cook it, stew it, or roast it with a bunch of herbs and vegetables to make it tender and flavorful. In fact, it's been eaten in rural America for generations. So yeah, Puxatawny Phil better hope nobody gets too curious about how he tastes. Somewhere out there, a hunter is eyeing that groundhog and thinking, stew. Proof that us humans will try basically anything if we're hungry or bored enough. 2. The truth behind the scream. You know the Scream by Ilva Munch? The guy with his hands on his face looking terrified? He's not screaming. He's listening to one. Munch wrote about this in his diary to explain exactly what was going on. The screamer isn't having a meltdown. He's reacting to what Munch called a scream passing through nature. The entire world is screaming, and this guy is the only one who can hear it. He's standing there, frozen, processing the fact that the universe itself is crying out in existential agony, and nobody else notices. For over a century, people have been interpreting this painting as a dude losing it, when really it's about a dude realizing the cosmos is shrieking, and he's stuck listening to it alone. Way to make it even more unsettling, Munch. 1. Humanity's codependent companions. Silkworms cannot survive without humans. These little guys have been bred and domesticated for so long that they've completely forgotten how to be moths. They can't fly anymore. They don't know how to find food. If you put one outside, it would sit there and perish because it has no idea what to do. For thousands of years, humans have been breeding silk moths specifically to produce, well, silk. We feed them, house them, and then take their cocoons and turn them into fancy fabric. Ancient China built entire trade empires on the back of these moths. I mean, the Silk Road wasn't just some catchy name, it was literally named after what these bugs were forced to produce. They've been bred into total helplessness while we profit off their cocoons. There is no escape for them, no going back to the wild. They're stuck with us forever, and they don't even have a choice in the matter. Well, your search history is about to look unhinged. Silk moths that forgot how to moth a tree with better property rights than most renters, and chimps who learn sign language just to cuss people out. Good luck explaining that to anyone who shares your Wi-Fi. If your brain needs more, well, go watch 25 Google Facts that'll melt your brain. It's gonna be right here. Now, let me know in the comments which fact got you. Smash that like button, subscribe, and hit that bell. Thank you guys so much for hanging out, and I'll catch you in the next one.